All right, I just got finished watching the penultimate episode of season 2 of Vinland Saga, the 23rd episode. Spoiler alert. It ends, of course. It starts, of course, where episode 22 ended with Thorfinn trying to negotiate with Canute to stop attacking the farm. He took that awful beating he took, and then he went to him and he talked to him, and basically Canute was like, "No, I'm not going to stop. I'm going to continue because I have a plan." And it was interesting. The severed head came back, but it was telling. King Swain came back and was telling him how dangerous Thorfinn was. And he needs to kill him because this guy is a sheep. But one sheep can basically turn all the other sheeps. He was seeing the danger in Thorfinn and the power in Thorfinn even in his peaceful state. He was a very powerful person. And of course, all this is in Canute's mind. So to me, it's just showing that Canute understood what a powerful person Thorfinn was, even without the swords. At the end of it, Canute said he wasn't going to stop, so Thorfinn said, "Well, I'm just going to run away then." And Canute actually just starts laughing. And as Thorfinn's walking away, and he's like, "Is that funny?" He's like, "Yeah, I've had countless people try to negotiate with me." He's like, "I've never had such a ridiculous negotiation, He's like, you didn't have a plan. You're not trying to con me. You're not trying to manipulate me. You're just like, you're just going to leave." And then they talk about, Thorfinn asks him about the peaceful place that Canute said he wanted to create. And Thorfinn said he's just going to create it himself, basically. He's going to go and create a peaceful place. He's going to find a place, because Canute asked him where he was going to stay, where he was going to go. And Thorfinn was like, "I'm just going to go somewhere outside of your reach and establish a land." He's like, "Well, my reach is going to keep going. Eventually I'm going to find you." And he's like, "Well, I'll just keep going until I figure out how to get far enough away from you where you can't find me." And we're coming back to that idea of Vinland, a land that's far away from slavery and war. Canute's blown away. But Thorfinn walks away. And the next thing you know, Canute stops. Canute leaves. He leaves the farm. and it's I can't think of the man's name. His head warrior, the head of the Yams Vikings, is upset. And but they're sailing away, and he just ends the campaign. And as a matter of fact, he pulls his troops completely out of England, and the English end up respecting him for it, and there ends up being basically peace in England. So the last thing we see of Canute is him sailing away and dismantling his armies in England. So in a sense, Thorfinn actually won him over. Not in a sense, he really did. He won him over. It's funny because the show is so violent, and it seems like a warmongering show, but it's actually the absolute opposite. It's like this peaceful utopian show. It's showing how ridiculous violence is, and it goes to great lengths and shows such ridiculous violence to prove the point. And then it shows how peace is won by eschewing violence. It doesn't really work like that in the real world, unfortunately. But as violent as Vinland Saga is, you almost are like, I wish life worked like these writers say it does. Anyway, after that, Thorfinn and Einar are at Arnhide's grave, and Einar's crying. He's putting flowers down. He's thinking back to when his mom and his sister were killed, when this whole adventure started for him. And he and Thorfinn agree to go and build Vinland. And they actually say the name Vinland, which I don't think has been spoken maybe one other time earlier in the early seasons, in the early episodes of the first season. But yeah, they call each other brother. and they resolve to go and build a society that that Arnheid could have gone to. Thorfinn talks about how she asked. They were asking her to stay alive, and she said, "What do I have to stay alive for?" And Thorfinn gives this impassioned speech about how I want to create a place that she would have wanted to stay alive for. I want to create a place, because that's all anybody wants. A place that's peaceful, no war, no strife. And they want to go and create this place, again, that Arnheid would have wanted to stay alive for, instead of just dying because she really didn't have a reason to live, because there was no place in the world like that. Really, really touching scene. So then the next time we see Thorfinn and Einar, they're sailing away. You've got Snake, Old Master, Pater, and one other person I can't remember. I'll remember it in a second. Snake, Pater, Old Master, and Omar are there, seeing them off, and they're getting ready to get on a boat and sail away. Omar thanks Thorfinn for everything he did. Apparently, Thorfinn let them tell the farmhands that Omar was the one that got Canute to leave. So of course that gives him stature on the farm, and he's the new leader of the farm. Poor Thorgil. They show a scene of him right quick on the beach screaming to Canute. You know, Canute's gone, long gone. There's nobody there on the beach. And he's like, "Why'd you leave? The fight's not over." So Thorgil's still frustrated because he wants the war. He wants the fight. And there's this whole, again, this juxtaposition between Vikings who live for the fight, and everyone else who's just like, let's just live in peace. Everybody else wants to just be peaceful. And unfortunately, these Vikings have been so amped up that they can't function without war. And, they show that in Thorgil and in Thorkel. And of course, this is a commentary on people who can't live without the fight. It was kind of a funny scene, but at the same time, it's kind of a really sad scene, because you realize somebody like Thorgil in a society like Vinland has no place, and he would have to completely unlearn what he's learned. Kind of like what Thorfinn went through, but Thorfinn was never a sold-out Viking. He was never completely that. That's why Askeladd told him at the final episode of season 1, "You have it in you to be a true warrior." And he basically became that when he took those 100 licks just to go and talk to the king and try to get him to leave the farm. So anyway, as they're sailing away, apparently they were offering them a chest of silver, and Thorfinn and Einar wouldn't take it. But as they're sailing away, Snake calls out his name, his real name, which is Roland. I think is R-O-A-N-D, Roland. I think it is something like that. But he calls out his true name to them. And Einar calls him by his true name and tells him thank you. It's a really cool scene, just seeing them watching Thorfinn and Einar sail away. And the episode ends with them farming. They show Snake and Fox and Badger farming, and Old Master looking over them. And it's a really cool scene, just seeing them building the farm back up themselves. Instead of being warriors, they're farmers now. So Thorfinn really, he had a huge impact on Kettle's farm. And you also see Kettle. They show a picture of Einar's grave, and then they show Kettle crying, and his wife standing behind him. She's not touching him or anything, but she's standing behind him. And I can only assume he's crying because he realizes he killed Einar. Arnheid, I'm sorry. He realized he killed Arnheid. Of course, you know how he felt about her and the baby, she was carrying, that was his. So, he's got to live with that for the rest of his life. That's the last scene you see of Kettle. This episode was odd. This is the second to last episode. I almost don't know what there is left to talk about. It seems like they kind of wrapped everything up, unless they just kind of want to show them in Vinland or something, or in another place starting to build a new society. This episode was kind of wrapped up kind of tightly. If this had been the last episode, I would have been fine with that. So I'm curious to see what episode 24 has left to say in this story. And now that I see where it's gone, where the story has gone, I'm curious to see if there will be a season 3, because this could very well be the end of Vinland Saga. I have heard, and I have purposely not looked to see, because I didn't want any spoiler alerts or any spoilers for me, because I haven't seen this before. But I could easily see there being no more Vinland Saga. This could be the end of the series. The last thing I want to talk about is the last episode. My son and I live in different cities, but he's actually visiting with me now. He fussed at me because I didn't mention him in the last episode, so I'm going to mention him now. He and I actually sat in the last episode, episode 22, and watched it together. It's the first episode of Vinland Saga we actually got a chance to watch together. All the other episodes, I've had to watch them and put these videos out. That's the whole reason I've done this channel, is because I wanted to basically talking to him and letting him know what I think of each episode. That's what all of these episodes are for. All this is about. So that's a shout out to my son. We actually got to sit together and watch one episode. He's asleep right now, so we're not watching this one together. We'll see if he and I end up watching the last one together in a couple of days. And the last thing is, he's already chosen my next episode for me. I'm going to do a little short that just kind of announces what it is. Oh, not episode, but my next series. So I'm going to do a short and announce what it is in a little bit. So it should be out around the same time as this video. So episode 24, season and series finale for Vinland Saga coming up. I can't wait.